The only thing I understand deeply, because in my teens I was thinking about it, and every year of my life, is software, so I'll never be hands-on on anything except software. 3D is a way of organizing things, particularly as we're getting much more media information. On the computer, a lot more choices, a lot more navigation than we've ever had before. Now, we put out a lot of carbon dioxide every year, over 26 billion tons. For each American, it's about 20 tons. For people in poor countries, it's less than 1 ton. It's an average of about 5 tons for everyone on the planet. And, somehow, we have to make changes that will bring that down to zero. My mom was on the United Way group that decides how to allocate the money and looks at all the different charities and makes the very hard decisions about where that pool of funds is going to go. In poor countries, we still need better ways to measure the effectiveness of the many government workers providing health services. They are the crucial link bringing tools such as vaccines and education to the people who need them most. How well trained are they? Are they showing up to work? What's amazing is, if young people understood how doing well in school makes the rest of their life so much interesting, they would be more motivated. It's so far away in time that they can't appreciate what it means for their whole life. They would be more motivated. It's so far away in time that they can't appreciate what it means for their whole life. I was lucky to be involved and get to contribute to something that was important, which is empowering people with software. Money has always been in politics, and I'm not sure you'd want money to be completely out of politics. Okay, I have a nickname. My family calls me Trey because I'm William III. My dad has the same name, which is always confusing because my dad is well known, and I'm also known. You can always think of something like the Xbox 360 as a super set-top box that can do everything the set-top box does, but then have the graphics to do the games as well. When you revolutionize education, you're taking the very mechanism of how people be smarter and do new things, and you're priming the pump for so many incredible things. In order to deal with all the medical cost demands and other challenges in the US, as we look to raise that revenue, the rich will have to pay slightly more. That's quite clear. Although I don't have a prescription for what others should do, I know I have been very fortunate and feel a responsibility to give back to society in a very significant way. In almost every area of human endeavor, the practice improves over time. That hasn't been the case for teaching. It's the poorer people in tropical zones who will get really hit by climate change, as well as some ecosystems, which nobody wants to see disappear. At Microsoft there are lots of brilliant ideas, but the image is that they all come from the top. I'm afraid that's not quite right. The first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. The second is that automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. The internet is becoming the town square for the global village of tomorrow. If you can't make it good, at least make it look good. If you go back to 1800, everybody was poor. I mean everybody. The Industrial Revolution kicked in, and a lot of countries benefited, but by no means everyone. The advance of technology is based on making it fit in so that you don't really even notice it, so it's part of everyday life. I believe in innovation, and that the way you get innovation is you fund research and you learn the basic facts. Drones overall will be more impactful than I think people recognize, in positive ways to help society. When I was growing up, my parents were almost involved in various volunteer things. My dad was head of Planned Parenthood, and it was very controversial to be involved with that. People always fear change. People feared electricity when it was invented, didn't they? People feared coal. They feared gas-powered engines. There will always be ignorance, and ignorance leads to fear, but with time, people will come to accept their silicon masters. The worst pandemic in modern history was the Spanish flu of 1918, which killed tens of millions of people. Today, with how interconnected the world is, it would spread faster. Everyone needs a coach. It doesn't matter whether you're a basketball player, a tennis player, a gymnast or a bridge player. Climate change is a terrible problem, and it absolutely needs to be solved. It deserves to be a huge priority. Capitalism has worked very well. Anyone who wants to move to North Korea is welcome. Historically, privacy was almost implicit, because it was hard to find and gather information. But in the digital world, whether it's digital cameras or satellites or just what you click on, we need to have more explicit rules, not just for governments but for private companies. Technology is just a tool. In terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them, the teacher is the most important. Security is, I would say, our top priority, because for all the exciting things you will be able. Efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. The second is that automation. If we don't solve these security problems, then people will hold back. Bitcoin is mostly about anonymous transactions, and I don't think over time that's a good way to go. I'm a huge believer in digital currency, but doing it on an anonymous basis, I think that leads to some abuses, so I'm not involved in Bitcoin. The way to be successful in the software world is to come up with breakthrough software. And so whether it's Microsoft Office or Windows, it's pushing that forward, new ideas, surprising the marketplace, so good engineering and good business are one and the same. The US immigration laws are bad, really, really bad. I'd say treatment of immigrants is one of the greatest injustices done in our government's name. Digital technology has several features that can make it much easier for teachers to pay special attention to all their students. You may have heard of Black Friday and Cyber Monday. There's another day you might want to know about, Giving Tuesday. The idea is pretty straightforward. On the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, shoppers take a break from their gift buying and donate what they can to charity. We always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. Don't let yourself be lulled into inaction. Information technology and business are becoming inextricably interwoven. I don't think anybody can talk meaningfully about one without talking about the other. Technology is just a tool. In terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them, the teacher is the most important. I think it's fair to say that personal computers have become the most empowering tool we've ever created. They're tools of communication, they're tools of creativity, and they can be shaped by their user. I'm a great believer that any tool that enhances communication has profound effects in terms of how people can learn from each other, and how they can achieve the kind of freedoms that they're interested in. I really had a lot of dreams when I was a kid, and I think a great deal of that grew out of the fact that I had a chance to read a lot. I can understand wanting to have millions of dollars. There's a certain freedom, meaningful freedom, that comes with that. It's possible, you can never know, that the universe exists only for me. If so, it's sure going well for me, I must admit. I'm an investor in a number of biotech companies, partly because of my incredible enthusiasm for the great innovations they will bring. We are in the throes of a transition where every publication has to think of their digital strategy. Like my friend Warren Buffett, I feel particularly lucky to do something every day that I love to do. He calls it tap dancing to work. Innovations that are guided by smallholder farmers, adapted to local circumstances, and sustainable for the economy and environment will be necessary to ensure food security in the future. Whether I'm at the office, at home, or on the road, I always have a stack of books I'm looking forward to reading. The malaria parasite has been killing children and sapping the strength of whole populations. For tens of thousands of years, it is impossible to calculate the harm malaria has done to the world. To create a new standard, it takes something that's not just a little bit different, it takes something that's really new and really captures people's imagination, and the Macintosh, of all the machines I've ever seen, is the only one that meets that standard. Software innovation, like almost every other kind of innovation, requires the ability to collaborate and share ideas with other people, and to sit down and talk with customers and get their feedback and understand their needs. In almost every area of human endeavor, the practice improves over time. That hasn't been the case for teaching. Unemployment rates among Americans who never went to college are about double that of those who have a post-secondary education. Should there be cameras everywhere in outdoor streets? My personal view is having cameras in inner cities is a very good thing. In the case of London, petty crime has gone down. They catch terrorists because of it, and if something really bad happens, most of the time you can figure out who did it. In terms of mathematics textbooks, why can't you have the scale of a national market? Right now, we have a Texas textbook that's different from a California textbook that's different from a Massachusetts textbook. That's very expensive. Understanding science and pushing the boundaries of science is what makes me immensely satisfied. It is hard to overstate how valuable it is to have all the incredible tools that are used for human disease to study plants. The most impactful dollars that Australia can spend are actually what goes to help the poorest. I know there's a farmer out there somewhere who never wants a PC, and that's fine with me. I think that society has to be careful not to shift all of its resources to the elderly versus the young. Nigeria has moved into low-middle income, but their north is very poor, and the healthcare systems there have broken down. Eventually you won't think of the internet business. You'll think of it more like news, weather, sports, but even that taxonomy isn't clear. Windows is probably the most important product in the entire PC industry. Everything we do in terms of supporting touch, new hardware, accessibility has incredible impact. The most amazing philanthropists are people who are actually making a significant sacrifice, helping convene global stakeholders to establish a set of measurable. I would counsel people to go to college, because it's one of the best times in your life. Actionable and consensus-built goals focused on extreme poverty is invaluable. In terms of who you meet and develop a broad set of intellectual skills. Steve Jobs' ability to focus in on a few things that count, get people who get user interface right, and market things as revolutionary or amazing things. Effective philanthropy requires a lot of time and creativity, the same kind of focus and skills that building a business requires. On my desk I have 3 screens, synchronized to form a single desktop. I can drag items from one screen to the next. Once you have that large display area, you'll never go back, because it has a direct impact on productivity. The US couldn't even get rid of Saddam Hussein, and we all know that the EU is just a passing fad. They'll be killing each other again in less than a year. I'm sick to death of all these fascist lawsuits. Fortunately for India, it has got a growing economy. If it is doing the right things with taxation and focusing on the right areas for human development, it is going to have no problem, over a period of time, taking care of its own needs. The Center for Disease Control started out as the Malaria War Control Board based in Atlanta. Partly because the head of Coke had some people out to his plantation, and they got infected with malaria, and partly cause all the military recruits were coming down and having a higher fatality rate from malaria while training than in the field. Nigeria has moved into low-middle income, but their north is very poor, and the healthcare systems there have broken down. The outside perception and inside perception of Microsoft are so different. The view of Microsoft inside Microsoft is always kind of an underdog thing. Understanding science and pushing the boundaries of science is what makes me immensely satisfied. The most impactful dollars that Australia can spend are actually what goes to help the poorest. Personally, I'd like to see more of our leaders take a technocratic approach to solving our biggest problems. I know there's a farmer out there somewhere who never wants a PC, and that's fine with me. Personally, I'd like to see more of our leaders take a technocratic approach to solving our biggest problems. 2 out of every 5 people on Earth today owe their lives to the higher crop outputs that fertilizer has made possible. Research shows that there is only half as much variation in student achievement between schools as there is among classrooms in the same school. If you want your child to get the best education possible, it is actually more important to get him assigned to a great teacher than to a great school. When you want to do your homework, fill out your tax return, or see all the choices for a trip you want to take, you need a full-size screen. The belief that the world is getting worse, that we can't solve extreme poverty and disease, isn't just mistaken, it is harmful. Whether it's Google or Apple or free software, we've got some fantastic competitors, and it keeps us on our toes. The PC has improved the world in just about every area you can think of. Amazing developments in communications, collaboration and efficiencies. New kinds of entertainment and social media. Access to information and the ability to give a voice people who would never have been heard. Measles will always show you if someone isn't doing a good job on vaccinations. Kids will start dying of measles. In 9th grade, I came up with a new form of rebellion. I hadn't been getting good grades, but I decided to get all A's without taking a book home. I didn't go to math class, because I knew enough and had read ahead, and I placed within the top 10 people in the nation on an aptitude exam. Almost every way we make electricity today, except for the emerging renewables and nuclear, puts out CO2. And so, what we're going to have to do at a global scale, is create a new system, and so, we need energy miracles. Until we're educating every kid in a fantastic way, until every inner city is cleaned up, there is no shortages of things to do. In K-12, almost everybody goes to local schools. Universities are a bit different because kids actually do pick the university. The bizarre thing, though, is that the merit of university is actually how good the students going in are, the SAT scores of the kids going in. I've always been amazed by Da Vinci, because he worked out science on his own. He would work by drawing things and writing down his ideas. Of course, he designed all sorts of flying machines way before you could actually build something like that. I'm sorry that we have to have a Washington presence. We thrived during our first 16 years without any of this. I never made a political visit to Washington and we had no people here. It wasn't on our radar screen, we were just making great software. Internet TV and the move to the digital approach is quite revolutionary. TV has been a broadcast medium with everybody picking from a very finite number of channels. I understand how every healthy child, every new road, puts a country on a better path. But instability and war will arise from time to time, and I'm not an expert on how you get out of those things. Like almost everyone who uses email, I receive a ton of spam every day. Much of it offers to help me get out of debt or get rich quick. It would be funny if it weren't so exciting. By the time we see that climate change is really bad, your ability to fix it is extremely limited. The carbon gets up there, but the heating effect is delayed, and then the effect of that heat on the species and ecosystem is delayed. That means that even when you turn virtuous, things are actually going to get worse for quite a while. I believe the returns on investment in the poor are just as exciting as successes achieved in the business arena, and they are even more meaningful. Employers have decided that having the breadth of knowledge that's associated with a 4-year degree is often something they want to see in the people they give that job to. If I'd had some set idea of a finish line, don't you think I would have crossed it years ago? Well, private money can take risks in a way that government money often isn't willing to. According to Ethiopian custom, parents wait to name a baby because children often die in the first weeks of life. Microsoft Research has a thing called the Sense Cam that, as you walk around, it's taking photos all the time. And the software will filter and find the ones that are interesting without having to think, let's get out the camera and get that shot. You just have that, and software helps you pick what you want. Security guys break the Mac every single day. Every single day, they come out with a total exploit. Your machine can be taken over totally. I have a nice office, I have a nice house, so I'm not denying myself some great things. I just don't happen to have expensive hobbies. We have to find a way to make the aspects of capitalism that serve wealthier people serve poorer people as well. Innovation is a good thing. The human condition, put aside biotourism and a few footnotes, is improving because of innovation. We all sort of do want incentives for creative people to still exist at a certain level, you know. Maybe rock stars shouldn't make as much, who knows, but you want as much creativity to take place in the future as took place in the past. I'm a great believer that any tool that enhances communication has profound effects in terms of how people can learn from each other, and how they can achieve the kind of freedoms that they're interested in. I believe that if you show people the problems and you show them the solutions, they will be moved to act. In the long run, your human capital is your main base of competition. Your leading indicator of where you're going to be 20 years from now is how well you're doing in your education system. I really had a lot of dreams when I was a kid, and I think a great deal of that grew out of the fact that I had a chance to read a lot. I think it makes sense to believe in God, but exactly what decision in your life you make differently because of it, I don't know. Some people, through luck and skill, end up with a lot of assets. If you're good at kicking a ball, writing software, investing in stocks, it pays extremely well. In business, the idea of measuring what you are doing, picking the measurements that count like customer satisfaction and performance. You thrive on that. We make the future sustainable when we invest in the poor, not when we insist on their suffering. I never took a day off in my 20s, not one, and I'm still fanatical, but now I'm a little less fanatical. Headlines, in a way, are what mislead you because bad news is a headline, and gradual improvement is not. Oh, I think there are a lot of people who would be buying and selling online today that go up there and they get the information, but then when it comes time to type in their credit card they think twice because they're not sure about how that might get out and what that might mean for them. I've always been amazed by Da Vinci, because he worked out science on his own. He would work by drawing things and writing down his ideas, of course. He designed all sorts of flying machines way before you could actually build something like that. Just in terms of allocation of time resources, religion is not very efficient. There's a lot more I could be doing on a Sunday morning. There are people who don't like capitalism, and people who don't like PCs, but there's no one who likes the PC who doesn't like Microsoft. Governments will always play a huge part in solving big problems. They set public policy and are uniquely able to provide the resources to make sure solutions reach everyone who needs them. They also fund basic research, which is a crucial component of the innovation that improves life for everyone. I have been struck again and again by how important measurement is to improving the human condition. I think the thing we see is that as people are using video games more, they tend to watch passive TV a bit less. And so using the PC for the internet, playing video games, is starting to cut into the rather unbelievable amount of time people spend watching TV. Globalization has made copper and other minerals more valuable, and Ghana and Kenya have recently discovered mineral resources. Paper is no longer a big part of my day. I get 90% of my news online, and when I go to a meeting and want to jot things down, I bring my tablet PC. It's fully synchronized with my office machine, so I have all the files I need. It also has a note-taking piece of software called OneNote, so all my notes are in digital form. Today, we're very dependent on cheap energy. We just take it for granted, all the things you have in the house, the way industry works. I agree with people like Richard Dawkins that mankind felt the need for creation myths. Before we really began to understand disease and the weather and things like that, we sought false explanations for them. Now science has filled in some of the realm, not all, that religion used to fill. Software substitution, whether it's for drivers or waiters or nurses, it's progressing. Technology over time will reduce demand for jobs, particularly at the lower end of skill set. In K-12, almost everybody goes to local schools. Universities are a bit different because kids actually do pick the university. The bizarre thing, though, is that the merit of university is actually how good the students going in are, the SAT scores of the kids going in.